welcome to the 9th episode of The Window to Dubai.
Thank you.
I'm here with Helen from BizWorld, and we're going to talk about really a unique program, I think, that is focused on entrepreneurship and focused on children and kind of teaching that ecosystem to them. But first, let's start with just your background and kind of what brought you to the UAE.
Yeah, so I'm Jordanian originally, but I was born and raised in Bahrain. And after university in the UK, I worked in Jordan for about 10 years. Although I had studied law and politics, I hated it with all my heart. So I decided when I got back to Jordan that I wasn't going to do it. I was given a bit of an ultimatum by my mother, and she said, you need to find a job. And so I landed by complete accident in an advertising company, and I fell in love.
Oh, wow.
So I did marketing, communications and stuff for 10 years with some of the biggest brands like Amar and LG and Porsche and all of that.
Nice.
But then I felt like there was always something more that I wanted to do. And I decided to quit marketing and move into community development, nonprofits, social enterprises and things like that. So I worked in that with Her Majesty Queen Rania at the Jordan River Foundation in Jordan for a while. And I loved it because we were exposed to what you can do to change the world.
Yeah.
And so since then, that's been my path. I was recruited to move to Dubai as the CEO of a foundation called Mowgli, which does mentoring for entrepreneurs. And I was responsible for the Middle East, North Africa, and the UK. And since then, I've been here and I love it. After I left Mowgli, I decided I was going to do my own thing. And I've been an entrepreneur ever since then.
The BizWorld, it's somehow connected to a company in San Francisco, correct? There's a connection there.
BizWorld was founded about 21 years ago as a kind of grassroots movement in Silicon Valley because of the need there.
Yeah.
And just a few years ago, they started allowing people to franchise. So we brought in the curriculum into the UAE, Jordan, Egypt, and we have a few other countries that we're looking into expanding into.
Yeah.
We've Arabized it and we've adapted it for the local market. We've done a few changes, but originally it's a Silicon Valley-based program. So I decided I was going to take the world of education and change it. And after working for 15 years with entrepreneurs and mentoring them and volunteering, I decided to set up a platform for entrepreneurship education for children in the Middle East. Why entrepreneurship? Well, I'm going to just define entrepreneurship for a second. On the outside, entrepreneurship is the willingness and desire to set up a business and do something that you're going to get a profit from, blah, blah, blah. But on a much deeper level, entrepreneurship is resilience. Entrepreneurship is creativity. Entrepreneurship is innovation. Entrepreneurship is empathy. Because if you want to be an entrepreneur, it's not about the business. It's about everything that goes around it. And if we want our children to be ready for the future, then this is actually our only hope, to instill an entrepreneurial spirit in children today. And for education to truly prepare children, what we need is to be able to give them this entrepreneurial spirit, skills, and basic financial literacy. Because if we're going to look at children today and expect them to survive in a world where automation and artificial intelligence and 9-to-5 jobs are only going to get more and more scarce, then we're just setting them up for absolute failure.
The thing you talked about in your TED Talk was you're not really focused on the teaching children the making money part, but the skill set that goes with being an entrepreneur. Can you talk more about that part?
Absolutely. So the main reason why entrepreneurship is so great is because it teaches you a lot of things along the way.
Yeah.
And two of the biggest challenges that the Middle East has is the education systems and the job creation, because we have the highest unemployment rates.
Really?
We have about 30% unemployment rates. Wow. And if you were to look at the unemployed, 30% of them are university graduates. And taking all of that into account, you get to see that there's a very big disconnect between what the world needs and what people are being taught, specifically in the MENA region.
Yeah.
So a lot of schools and a lot of universities are trying to instill some of these life skills, but they're starting them at a very late age, so 11th grade, 12th grade.
Yeah, right before they graduate,
Yeah. And entrepreneurship is not about setting up a business plan. You can Google that today.
Yeah.
It's about the challenges, the resilience, the creativity,
being able to kind of put up with all the hard work that you need to do. And those are the kind of skills that we work on teaching kids. So we work with them on teamwork, creativity, resilience, being able to have the self-confidence to pitch in front of adults, to speak in front of adults. And if I was to expect children to learn all of that at a later age, then I would be completely out of my mind. Because values and the way that children are brought up, it all starts at a very young age. There's scientific evidence to show that by 7 or 8, children have already developed a lot of their values and a lot of their skill sets. So that's why we start so young.
Yeah, your unconscious thought pattern comes from your parents and grandparents and the stuff that they believe. And that's why kind of superstitions just get passed on for generation after generation. And it's the same with making money and being successful in life. If you tend to come from a successful family, you kind of believe you are. If you're not, it kind of carries. So there's definitely a connection. So you're focused on, what was the age group that you're focused on? It's under 15, so that can go down to 7, 6, 5 years old.
We generally start between the ages of 7 to 15. Most of our students today have been between the ages of 9 to 12, if I was going to be specific. But we do a national award, and we had children that were as young as 5 apply, and one of the 5-year-old girls actually made it to the top 10 finals last time. So although our core focus is 7 to 15, if someone's younger and they have a brilliant idea or they have the entrepreneurial mindset, we're happy to bring them on.
Nice. And so it's an after-school program. You're incorporating it inside the curriculum. So there's a lot of avenues that you're bringing it to the school system. Can you talk more about just the kind of different aspects of it?
Our program is about 15 training hours at a basic minimum. So how it's run, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
You know, if someone wants to do a spring camp or a summer camp, we can do that. If someone wants to do an after-school activity, we can do that. And my personal favorite is when we integrate it into the existing school curriculums.
Yeah.
So we've actually had amazing responses to things like the IB program we've integrated into, public schools we've integrated into, all kinds of different programs within schools. We've been able to integrate in subjects like English, math, social studies, where we train the teachers and then the teachers are able to deliver it. So it gets ingrained within the school program and we're not superimposing it over existing curriculums.
Wow. And I think I shared this story with you when I was young, that I started working when I was really young. And I think that, I'm 37, so I've really been working almost for 27 years. And I can't imagine living my life any other way. Yeah. And so I think that what you're doing is amazing for children, because I can personally tell you that I wouldn't be where I'm at if I didn't start when I was like 10 years old. Yeah. What do you do to find the schools or kind of this bring it together? Like, how do you target people to say, let's start this? Are you going directly to schools, and are you tied into that network? Like, how do you pick the schools, and how do you find the destination for the program, basically?
Our first go-to place was the ministries. So that was the first thing that we did. We had a lot of very positive response and feedback from people like the Ministry of Education here and in Jordan. But you'll be surprised, schools come to us.
Really?
So through all of our work and all of our marketing and all of our communications, 2 days ago I was on a radio program and I had 3 schools reach out within less than an hour. Schools are hungry for it. Yeah. Teachers are hungry for it.
They know that the system is broken and they need to do something different.
Yeah. And you'll find a lot of progressive teachers that hear it on the radio or will read an article and they'll get in touch and they'll say, we want this program in our school. How can we make it work? Yeah. And we're very involved in a lot of different business councils and different organizations like the Young Arab Leaders, and so all these organizations are different avenues. I don't believe in cold calling anyone. Yeah. So we've been very blessed in that way, where we've had great access and great feedback.
Yeah. What would be a great just marketing campaign would be through social media to tell the kids' stories of their ideas, especially if you could document through video, like the process of taking them to the school or the classes, and then they come up with this idea. And I know you talked about that there was an event coming up that was very similar to like a Shark Tank type event. We'll talk about that in a second. But kind of documenting that and telling the story through social media, because I think people would follow their story and their journey. So that would be just a cool idea.
I agree. Yeah. And right now there's a group of 3 boys that yesterday I got news. They just won an innovation award. So they're kids that I've been mentoring that we've kind of taken through the program and stuff. And their idea is an anti-tailgating technology. And they won a cash prize, and now they're looking to start coding it. They've already done the initial coding, and yesterday we started talking about their story and their journey. That's awesome. Definitely we'll definitely be tracking what they're doing for sure. We've got another kid that came up with an awesome kind of game exchange idea, and we're following his story as well, which is I love that kid. Yeah. You know, so I get very attached to them. Kind of, they all become like my little babies, and I just love them. Yeah. So definitely something that maybe we should do more of. Yeah. And I'd be more than happy to do that. Yeah, it would be great to just hear their story and hear their journey, and it'd be so cool as they get older to revert back and see that, awesome, you know, just to look back at it, it would be pretty cool. Now, we had talked about just the difference of you chose to go the path of running it as an organization, kind of a for-profit versus a nonprofit. Yes. Can we talk about that and kind of the challenges of a nonprofit versus a for-profit and why you chose to go that route? Absolutely. I worked in nonprofits for about 7 years. Yeah. And I loved the fact that there was a cause. Yes. I hated the fact that we had to fundraise all the time and that we were always struggling to make ends meet. When I decided to set up BizWorld in the UAE, I had the option of having it nonprofit, and I chose not to. Yeah. I believe that if we develop as a social enterprise where we give back to the community, that we would be able to answer both needs. We're able to be a profitable organization that doesn't need to be running after money to cover our operating expenses. At the same time, we're able to give back to the people that need it the most. And I started learning this model of a social enterprise when I worked with an organization based out of a refugee camp in Jordan. Actually, this jacket is made by the women in the refugee camp. Oh, wow. It's called the Social Enterprise Project. And it was the first for-profit to be set up in a refugee camp. And at the beginning, everyone was very resistant because they're used to people coming in and giving donations. But the founder, who's an Italian-Swiss woman, Italian woman living in Switzerland, she decided to set up a company. And through that company, they started with a few women. Now they have over 800 women who are making money, living a very dignified, very positive life. Yeah. And it's not based on charity. In the UAE specifically, you can't fundraise unless you're associated with one of the few non-profit organizations. Yeah. So that's another challenge. And I find that I would love for every company in the UAE to be a social enterprise. Yeah. And I'd love for every non-profit to also be a social enterprise. Yeah. Make sure that you can pay the people that work there. Make sure that you don't have to worry about money and paying the bills, and do good. Yeah. You know, it's the best of both worlds. I don't see why you have to pick one or the other. Why does a corporation need to be evil, and why does a nonprofit need to be nice? Yeah. Why can't we just have a bunch of social enterprises that are doing both? Yeah. And I think I mentioned to you before the show started is that one of the things I've talked to other people that do nonprofits is that not-for-profit doesn't mean that you don't profit. Absolutely. It just means the reason why you're doing it is not for a profit. Yeah. But to help people, there's a cost, and then that surplus is what you use to help people. That's the profit, technically speaking. 100%. And if you don't have that, you're not able to really help people. And I think there's a misconception of that. Yeah. I mean, the US is a bit ahead of the game because they created the B Corp registration, which is a social enterprise. Yes. In the US, it used to only be the 501c3, which was a nonprofit. Yes. But now in the US and in the UK and different countries around the world are starting to recognize that you can't always operate as a nonprofit. Yeah. So they've set up all of these different, social enterprise registrations or licenses, if you will. Yeah. And you took me kind of down. What the difference, and you actually told me this when I think I first talked to you. I said, I want to make a show talking about the UAE and the Middle East. And you were like, well, you can't generalize the Middle East like you can in the US. How would you compare it,
UAE versus, because you're doing also a lot of work in Jordan, kind of the difference between the two, progressive versus not as progressive?
Each country has its own dynamics.
Yeah.
The UAE is a lot more international. On a professional level, everything is very much documented. Everything is, you need to get a facility, you know exactly where to go, you know exactly what you need to do. And the beauty of that is that if you have a plan, you know exactly how you're going to navigate and get there. The other side is a place like Jordan, which has its own beauty and its own kind of positive twist in that everyone is family and everyone's willing to help everyone. And so the way that you get about doing business there, although there are systems, it's a lot more dependent on, who you know and things like that, which again comes with a lot of different benefits because you're able to navigate the system.
The network.
So there, it's very much a network. Yeah. Here, it's very much a system.
It's you got to pay someone to do it.
So I mean, both have huge advantages for sure. And they're both just very different. And the same with Egypt. I do a lot of work in Egypt, and it's a very different way of navigating the system compared to Jordan or the UAE.
You're kind of operating from the UAE, but you're also branching out into these other countries at the same time. So you're kind of reaching out across really the whole MENA region. Yeah, absolutely.
And I have partners in different countries, so I don't do it all on my own.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And I think it's important to build that team, that's really how you take your organization to the next level, is the people that care about it just as much as you do. Yeah. What about really kind of bringing in the woman's aspect in the Middle East, doing business? How is that versus, I mean, I don't know if you can relate it to outside of the Middle East, but maybe talk more about just, because I feel like from just my experience, Dubai has been, even just with the show, there's been a lot of women that are receptive to coming on and meeting. There are a lot of women that are open to coming and telling their story. And it just seems to be women are thriving in the UAE for whatever reason. They seem to be like, this is their place, and it seems to be a good ecosystem where there's a support system around it. Is that fair to say?
100%. There's a very big misconception, I think. The numbers will tell you that women are not getting paid as much, that there are different rights and different rules and different laws that are put women at a disadvantage. Yeah. And there's absolutely no arguing that. Yeah. At the same time, there are a lot of things that women are able to do that they weren't able to do before, such as the way that we work, being able to be outspoken. Women have become a lot more empowered to kind of be on their own. There's no longer this traditional idea that you have to get married and have children. Yeah. You can choose what you want to do. And the UAE is, I would say, probably the best example of giving women, the most empowerment possible. Yeah. The UAE is the only place in this part of the world where you'll find women at the airports, where you'll find women police, where you'll find women taxi drivers, where you'll find women at all governmental levels, high levels, receptionist levels, everything. And that's not something that you find very, very often. Yeah. And the reason why they're able to do that is because they feel safe and their families feel safe. Yeah. Because the main reason why women don't do certain jobs in other places is because their families don't want them to, because they don't feel like they're safe. Yeah. So that's a huge part of it. Yeah. But it seems like, and I'm very new to the region, but it seems like this region is starting to notice this and kind of follow a little bit. Yeah. Not completely, obviously, but even like, I feel like Saudi has seen what Dubai is doing and they're trying to mimic that and try to recreate that same freedom and openness to their society, and it seems like Dubai has kind of led the way in that sense. It does. I mean, let's forget about work for a second. As a triathlete, there's a huge number of times where I have to, be training very early in the morning before the sunrise, and not once do I ever feel like I'm being threatened or that I'm not safe or that anything is going to harm me. Yeah. That in its own right is something that is worth mentioning. Yeah. Because that feeling of safety and that feeling of comfort enables you to do things that you otherwise might not have done. Yeah. I would even say I feel safer here than I do in the US. Yeah.
That's out. I say it jokingly, but at the same time, like I've told my friends, like I don't worry about mass shootings here. I don't have the same, complexes that you might have in the U.S. because you don't see it, you don't deal with it. It's just they've created a very unique bubble where it's just like brought so many people from around the world, and I think this is why I kind of wanted to create the show, because I almost want my friends in America to know how cool it really is here.
And there's the respect thing. You don't get people saying things to you on the street. You don't get people kind of harassing you, any of that stuff. So there's respect. Everyone that's here is here because they want to make a living, they want to have an awesome job, they want to be an entrepreneur, and they want to make it big. So people that come here because they dream big, and they come here for a reason, and the reason they're here is not to cause trouble.
Exactly. It's one of the things my friends are like, but you can't do this there, you can't do that there, and I'm like, it's mostly kind of a misconception, but I'm not here for any of that. I'm here to launch a multi-million-dollar marketing company in the Middle East. Like, that's what I'm thinking about. I'm not thinking about all that other stuff. So it's really like a non-factor for me either. But it's definitely a unique place in the world. Going back to BizWorld, how can people get involved and help you kind of take this thing and kind of bring it and take it to the next level? I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but how can they get involved? How can they help?
Okay, so there are lots of ways. Everything helps. Access to schools. If anyone is in a school or knows a school and wants to recommend us, that's always great. We're always looking for sponsors for our workshops and specifically for things like our awards. So we're always looking for people that are interested in being a part of it, sponsoring it, and on the other side as well, for kids. So for kids to submit their ideas. All I want is as many kids as possible to submit their ideas so that we can give them a chance to make something happen, Nice. So for me, how can people help is get your neighbors' kids to sign up and to submit an idea.
And where would they go? To the website? How would they submit?
They would submit we have a microsite called kidpreneuraward.com. Or they can go onto our Instagram, biz.world_UAE, and send us a message. Or on our Facebook page, BizWorld UAE, and send us a 50-word message or a video.
And they just kind of tell their idea?
In 50 words.
Like a 50-word pitch?
50 words. They just have to send us 50 words, what their idea is. Some people have sent us videos before. And then we have a judging panel and criteria and all of that. And we take them through the program to help them develop it a little bit more so that then they can pitch it to the judges. All
right. Well, I think that was a great episode. I really appreciate you coming on, and thank you.
No, on the contrary, thank you. I really appreciate it.